Today we'll be solving quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. In order to use the quadratic formula, your quadratic equation must be in standard form. ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. The quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So we're familiar with standard form. We've been using that, ax squared plus bx plus c, and we're also familiar with the quadratic formula. If we look carefully here, we have minus b over 2a, and that was the formula we used to calculate the axis of symmetry when we were graphing quadratic equations. B squared minus 4ac, the number under the radical, is the discriminant. So let's solve some quadratic equations that have two solutions. So in order to solve it, we first check that we're in standard form, and we are. So go ahead and identify A, B, C, and go ahead and calculate the discriminant. So once we've identified A, B, and C and calculated our discriminant, we can just put the numbers into the formula. So the quadratic formula is minus b. So I have a b that's a minus 2. So a minus minus 2 is a plus 2. So 2 plus or minus the square root of the discriminant, which is 36, divided by 2 times a. So a is 1, so that's just 2. So now we need to simplify. So we have 2 plus the square root of 36, and that number divided by 2, and we have 2 minus the square root of 36 divided by 2. So when we simplify the first expression, 2 plus 6 is 8, divided by 2 is 4, and when we simplify the second expression, 2 minus 6, which is minus 4, divided by 2 is minus 2. So our solutions are 4 and negative 2. So again, let's solve one with two solutions. So let's start by identifying A, B, C and calculating the discriminant. So A is 3, B is 5, and C is negative 4, and the discriminant is 73. So let's plug it into our formula. So it's minus b, so minus 5, plus or minus the square root of 73 divided by 2 times a, which is 6. So again, we have two different equations. We have minus 5, whoops, that was plus or minus the square root. We have minus 5 plus the square root of 73 divided by 6. And we have minus 5 minus the square root of 73 divided by 6. So the square root of 73 is an irrational number, so let's get a decimal equivalent. We can't simplify this anymore. We could use this. This is exact, but to get the decimal equivalent, it would be 0.59. And for the second one, your answer would be negative 2.25. So now let's solve a quadratic equation with one solution using the quadratic formula. So again, we begin by identifying A, B, C and calculating the discriminant. So A is 1, B is 6, and C is 9, and our discriminant is 0. So let's plug it into the formula. Minus b, so minus 6, plus or minus the square root of the discriminant, which is 0, all over 2a. So we have negative 6 plus, the square root of 0 is just 0, so we have negative 6 plus 0 and negative 6 minus 0, which is just negative 6, so over 2, so our answer is just negative 3. Now let's look at solving one with no solution. Again, identify the A, B, C, and the discriminant. So A is 2, B is -3, C is 5, and the discriminant is -31. So let's plug that into the quadratic formula. Minus B, so minus a -3 is 3, plus or minus the square root of a -31 over 2 times A, which is 4. Well, we can stop right here because we can't take the square root of a negative number, so we have no solution.